Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we're going to be starting a brand new series looking at Grand Tactician, the Civil War. This is a game that is in early access, being developed by Oliver Keppelmuller. It's a pretty small team making this game, but it's a very ambitious game. It's a game that allows you to fight through the American Civil War from either the Union or the Confederate side, and it has tactical historical battles, but in addition to that, it also has a grand campaign. The campaign can start anywhere between 1861 and 1865, and it puts you in charge sort of the entire war effort. So from the strategy side, you've got to worry about policies that might make the Europeans more or less likely to join your cause and intervene if you're the Confederacy. For the Union, you need to worry about trying to prevent that from happening. Also, you need to worry about keeping your economy going, raising funds, making sure that there's no critical shortages of different goods, you know, to see if you need to add subsidies or different things like that to your economy to make things, you know, move smoothly. You need to blockade the Confederacy or break the blockade or try and slip through the blockade as the Union or the Confederacy, and then move units around on a grand strategic map. And after you move those units around, when they do collide with each other, you get thrown a tactical battle on a 3D map. So a very ambitious game. Now, this game originally entered early access last year in the late summer, and I played it a fair bit on the channel, but it was very rough when it entered early access. The AI wasn't in great shape. A lot of the mechanics were not fully fleshed out. It was very much in the early side of early access. A year later, my understanding is they're getting pretty close to release. They're up to patch 9.0 or 9.1 or something like that. And as I understand it, it'll be coming out soon. So I wanted to go back and take another look at it and see how they've improved the game. Now, I did mention there are historical tactical battles. They've added a few of those. Glorieta Pass, for example, one of the battles that helped decide New Mexico for the Union. So there are different battles in here. Obviously, you can see 1st Manassas, Wilson's Creek, Pea Ridge, 2nd Manassas, Antietam, Chancellorsville, Gettysburg. A whole bunch of battles are in here. So a lot of interesting tactical fights if that's all you want to do. I think there's a total of 15. I might have counted wrong, but around 15 total tactical battles that you can fight in real time. Or you can go ahead and play one of the campaigns, which does that strategy and tactical side that I mentioned. We are going to play the campaign. We're going to play the spring 1861 campaign because one of the big challenges I noticed when I played originally was that the AI just wasn't good at raising troops. This campaign was broken, flat out broken when it first came out a year ago. So let's see if that's been improved upon, and if the AI knows how to raise armies or not, because the spring 1861 campaign actually starts in February of 61, just before Lincoln's inauguration. And so this is literally no one has troops in the field yet. The Union has a few garrisons in places like Fort Pickens and Fort Sumter, but you know, it's essentially the Civil War from the beginning of secession. Now, when you do play this game, you can choose either playing as the Union or the Confederates. You can give bonuses to the AI. So we're actually going to give the AI a slight bonus here to increase their national morale. That'll potentially make the AI a little bit more difficult. And then we're going to set difficulty to mediocre. But according to this, the difficulty really is just based on the AI's aggressiveness. So I'm hoping this is kind of the middle tier of difficulty. They won't be too aggressive and sending like armies into the north like crazy, but they also won't be so passive that they won't do anything. So we'll see. In addition to choosing difficulty and bonuses, you also go ahead and have to choose 3 policies. You can rely on historic policies, or you can choose them yourself, or I guess randomize them. So that is your option. I guess, really, is it just random? I can't like just choose them myself? Oh yeah, you can choose them yourself. Okay. But we're going to go with the historical policies. And so there are different things in here, like is the Trans-Siberian is the Trans-Siberian, oh my god, is the Transcontinental Railroad built early? Is there greater support for the Underground Railroad? Is there greater support for abolitionism? And they can all do different things. You know, a breadbasket, for example, helps improve Union relations with Europe. Security measures helps limit the amount of arms the Confederates seize when they start taking over these different forts when they declare their independence. This is something the Union didn't really do, but they could have done. You know, the Confederates, when Virginia joined the Confederacy, Norfolk was seized by the Confederates, and they gained like 180 heavy cannon, heavy naval guns that were really important in fortifying places like Fort Donaldson, in getting the guns they needed to reduce Fort Sumter, to fortifying the Mississippi River. And so if the Union had taken more proactive measures, they could have prevented that from occurring. The Confederates have their own set of these policies. The Old Dominion kind of assures that Virginia joins the Confederacy. There's some policies about expanding slavery more aggressively to the west, about supporting large-scale southern incursions into Latin America, which increases its military experience. Southern industrialization, which obviously would benefit the South a lot if they had more industry, or a southern transcontinental railroad, if the railroad had been built on a more southerly route. But we're going to play as the Union in this particular scenario. You can see both sides start with 100 morale, 5 experience, 5,000 troops, and 45 ships for the Union, 30 for the Confederates, and Confederate momentum, I guess, whatever that means. So let's go ahead and jump in. Now, one of the things I like is on these loading screens, you actually get a little bit of a write-up about each of the policy choices that you chose of those 3. So if you're, while you're waiting, you can read through this to get a little bit more information if you didn't read previously, although it loads pretty quick. So you may have to read real quick. A lot of times you get nice little quotes down here in the bottom, like from James Buchanan here, or some game information as well on the loading screen. After you go through this loading screen, you're actually going to pull up a screen that is kind of a Ken Burnsian documentary style. So you've got this like old style, like sepia type view of different images and things like that. You get a narrator reading some quotes. And then what you're actually going to get, and we're not going to listen to this all because it's like a 7-minute long video for this, but there's basically like an intro to the American Civil War. It kind of talks about the United States declaring independence from Great Britain and sort of the birth of the United States. It talks about sort of America's push westward, as well as the war with Mexico and America, and sort of leading into the Civil War, and then, the issues of slavery as well. So it does talk about sort of the run up to this, and it's a very Ken Burnsian style video here. It says Chapter 1, which is kind of like how Ken Burns starts. My one complaint about this is the narrator's really dry. Like, he speaks really slow. It's nice and clear, so everybody's gonna understand it, but it's really slow. There's no emotion in it. It's just a little bit of a dead read, and I think that could be a lot better. The rest of this is really well put together. I think it's put together by Lionheart Filmworks, but like the narration is just, there's room for improvement there. With that being said, there are these chapter videos at different stages of the war. So like this first chapter is describing the run up to the secession. Once Fort Sumter is fired upon, you move to Chapter 2, and you get another write-up that talks about sort of both sides mobilizing. And so you get a lot of this kind of interesting little flavor, which to me feels like it's trying to make the game feel like less of a small studio. Oliver Kuppelmuller's team is very small. I think it's like 5 or 6 guys making this game. But in terms of, I'm using guys liberally, I think there's a couple of women involved as well. 5 or 6 people. But with that being said, yeah, let's just jump ahead. All right, so first thing I'm actually going to do, I'm going to lock rotation. All right, it's already locked. So the campaign map can rotate with the Q and E keys, or if you move your mouse cursor to the top right or top left, that gets really annoying and disorienting. So I'm just going to lock it on its current axis. America divided, President Buchanan unable to solve the crisis. So you get these newspaper pop-ups periodically throughout the war that kind of tell you what's going on the home front and the war front, those kind of things. So as you can see here, this is the strategic map. This is the map that shows the entire United States at this period of time, minus some of the Pacific territories, like California. But you can see here South Carolina, Georgia, Atlanta, Mississippi, Louisiana, and the Indian territories are all outlined in red. I can't tell if Texas is outlined in red or not yet, but basically these are the states that have seceded. Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia have not yet, but they almost certainly will. You use your mouse wheel to scroll in and out. You can see different fort locations: Fort Macon Garrison, Fort Caswell. So there's Union garrisons in different forts here. You can obviously see there's a garrison at Fort Sumter, as well as 3 flags around Fort Sumter, which presumably indicates Confederate militia or South Carolina militia. Yep, that's what it looks like, that are raised and surrounding the fort. But at the moment, we've got the Fort Sumter garrison is in place. It has 85 men, 40 guns, under the command of Major Robert Anderson. Readiness is deficient, so this is new from last time I played. There's a readiness bar for units, so that's kind of interesting. Can't really issue orders to them, so they just kind of have to sit there as a garrison unit. You've got Fort Pickens in the south as well, with some state militia units near Pensacola, Florida, kind of isolating them. And there you go. So you've got some trade indicators or sailing indicators down here for different European and Central American nations that help the Confederacy try to break the blockade. You've got some other forts further off, the Dry Tortugas, the Florida Keys, that are currently in Union control. And then you've got different, I think the fleets around here. You've got the Home Squadron up here that's currently based or sailing off Long Island. Consists of 11 ships and 120 guns as the main American fleet at the moment. Not a lot else out here, though. You do see there are some British units here in Canada, but not a lot of other units raised here. The war hasn't really begun. It's February of 1861. You can get some information along the top of the screen as well. So our total fielded manpower at the moment is 825 men. That'll obviously go up. Our current treasury and surplus is 1.6 million, 1,699,000. Negative 7.2 million is our current treasury in surplus, so we'll probably have to issue some bonds. Our current credit rating looks like it's an A, which is not very good. When I looked at it the last time I played, it starts at AAA, so maybe that's just because time hasn't started yet. And then shipping, rail, and river transport capacity icons up here. You have some strategic, you have multiple different sort of windows here that you can open. The strategic window shows us that President Buchanan is still president until March 4th, I believe. Major General Winfield Scott Hancock, Major General Winfield Scott is the commander of the Union Army. You can see he's a level 2 experienced commander. He's been through, he's had enough experience to lead men, but his reliability in most combat situations could be dicey depending on what's going on. You know, obviously he's not the most fit commander at the moment. He's very old and very overweight. You've also got Major General Pgt Beauregard for the Confederacy. You can see here some official records, some official dates that have occurred in the war so far. February 23rd, Kansas is joining the Union. Our objectives on the left: break Confederate morale. No, we haven't done that yet. And then you can see total manpower, total morale, national support, morale of the armies, loyal states, men fielded in arms, Navy tonnage, military experience, battles won, casualties lost, European relations. Bunch of information that shows up down there on the strategy screen. On the military screen, you get a lot of information that's kind of not super relevant, so we'll have to talk about that once we start building armies, because you actually build like a full bracketed out OOBs. So you start with like the Army Command, then you go down to the Corps, the Division, down to the Brigade, have artillery batteries. So you like build whole OOBs down in this area, but at the moment, all of our units are just small garrison units with no real, you know, there's very few men there, so there's not really an OOB there yet. You can also see the military tab. You have fleets. So right now we just have the Home Squadron at sea. The USS Sabine, Cumberland, Macedonia, a whole bunch of ships out here. You can see the readiness status of these ships is all at 100%. There are also ships in harbor, so not all of our fleet is deployed to this particular squadron. You can see the ship of the line USS New Orleans and Vermont are both at 25 and 35% respectively. And then you've got other ships that are currently in port. I think all these guys are on the East Coast. We don't have any other squadrons, so we're going to need to build some squadrons for the Mississippi River. And then it looks like Garrett Pendergrast is the commander of our fleet. Officers, you get a whole bunch of information here. This is going to fill up. I mean, you've got a lot of officers, people like Joseph Hooker, who are only colonels right now, but they're presumably going to get promoted and things like that. At the moment, the Army has a Major General in Charles Stanford, a Brigadier General in Sylvester Church, and John Wool. John Wool's the only guy who's had any experience, although it says he's inexperienced. The other guys have nothing. They're greenhorns. And then you've got a whole bunch of colonels that you can, like, you know, scroll through all the colonels in the Army. It looks like there's 16 of them right now. We've got a whole bunch of lieutenant colonels, a whole bunch of majors. It looks like 14 majors, 9 lieutenant colonels, 76 captains. You can see Ulysses S. Grant right down here is a captain. 643 lieutenants, And a lot of these guys are folks who will rise to high command during the war. You've got, I'm trying to find Oliver Howard. He becomes a corps commander in the war. You've got Oliver Green, who I believe becomes a division commander. John McClernand, I think, ends up commanding a corps. So a lot of different figures as you scroll through here, and a lot of them have their historical portraits. There's some generic ones that are generated and whatnot, but a lot of these guys do have their sort of portraits made to look like the individual. John Reynolds, for example. And as you hover over, you get information about each one of these commanders. You can click on it too, so you can see Lieutenant John Reynolds. He's an experienced commander. His rank is lieutenant. His branch of arms is artillery, which matters. You can see it gives him certain information about his skills. He's a veteran, and he's a West Point graduate. You can see each commander has their own level of fame, initiative, leadership, administration, and cunning, and these can all go up or down based on the experience they have during the war, or if they're promoted beyond their level of competency, it can go down, and other things like that. So pretty detailed breakout of the armies. You can see finances here. You're not really going to go into this a whole lot, but basically on the right side of the screen, you can add subsidies to civil order, recruitment, trade, transportation, agriculture, industry, and diplomacy that help your economy. You can fund your economy via tariffs, sales tax, income tax, or corporate taxes. Right now we have a 30% tariff, 5% sales tax, and no income or corporate taxes. You've got a summary of your finances on the left side. It's weird that I went right to left instead of left to right, but whatever. With the surplus or expenses or other things like that. And then also just general economic information. We're currently we're in an expansionist economy at the moment, so the economy is growing. Wealth overall for the public, however, is very poor. The United States, despite being rapidly growing at this time, was not a wealthy nation. Unemployment is obviously not 0%. I think it's just because we just started. Interest rates on the debt, credit rating, things like that. You also have policies. You'll spend more time in policies. Oh, by the way, you can also totally auto-manage the economy, which currently we have selected. You don't do a lot other than sort of command the sliders for taxes or subsidies, though, is my understanding. Okay, so this is the first thing where we're actually going to do something. I know we're like 15 minutes in here, but we have policies that we need to implement in order to unlock different capabilities. So one of the things we need to do is we need to be able to pay for our armies. So one thing we can do is we can invest in a government funding policy, which improves our credit rating and allows us to get more money in loans at lower interest rates, which makes funding a war easier. You can do a breadbasket policy, which really helps get the Europeans on our side because it allows us to boost our agricultural exports to Europe, which helps to counteract the importance of King Cotton there. You can do industrialization, which helps to expand the number of factories in your country, which directly drives economic growth, and also it impacts the price of things like steel or coal, which directly influence how expensive it is for you to run your armies, because running your armies has a cost, whether it's building new ships or replenishing ammunition used at the front. Arming of civilian ships, we can't do that right now. And then there's a military policy, which allows new laws for recruitment and internal security, trade warfare, reforms making the military more effective in modern warfare. It allows us to have recruitment and trade warfare subsidies up to $250,000 annually, so like subsidies to encourage people to join the military. And then the other one that's available to us is diplomacy. So we can do up to 8 policies at once, but every time we select a policy, so if we select military here by clicking on this little sort of magnifying glass, it's going to take 32 days. If I move over here and choose breadbasket, though, it's going to, I believe, expand how long it takes. So like breadbasket, this is 32. Now the military one goes up to 69 days. So I'm not going to do that. We're going to cancel that policy, and we're just going to focus on the military policy because I really want to be able to build an effective and efficient military quickly. So we will work on the military one policy. Next tab up on the top is production. Not really anything to do here, but you can see there's a whole bunch of different economic types. This screen reminds me a little bit of Victoria 2 in the sense that you've got manufacturers here, lumber mills here, coal fields, Lansing, Michigan, coal fields, Lansing, Michigan, Cliff Copper Mines, St. Paul, Minnesota, Aztec Copper Mines. So you've got a whole bunch of different factories, and these can close, these can fail, or they can expand and new ones can be built. And these are reflected on the map. So if armies move into these territories or whatnot, they can destroy these facilities as well, and that can have a direct economic impact on you. the price of these goods directly impacts how expensive it is to build and purchase certain units or certain types of things. So while you're not actively managing these, your subsidies impact them, the war can impact them, what you're building can impact them, and then the overall economic climate can impact them. It's largely outside your control. You're not micromanaging the economy, but again, your decisions do have a direct impact on this, and this all impacts sort of national morale and the support that the public give to you. And then you've got your, I guess, is this one? Goods and trade, which just kind of goes at, rather than looking at the production of each individual item, this shows you artillery, bricks, bronze. This shows you all the different goods that are produced or consumed in the economy here. So that was a lot. We're already 20 minutes in. I think the first thing I want to do, let's go ahead and move it like times 50 for a couple of days, because I don't have a lot to do at the moment. We already picked our policy. We need to let that, move forward. You can see Jefferson Davis has been inaugurated. State militias in the South are mobilizing, but we can't really move troops around at this stage. Like if I raise armies, I can't move them into the South yet until I get Lincoln inaugurated or other things like that. So until Lincoln is president, it doesn't make a lot of sense to do a whole bunch of recruitment or things like that. Loyalties in Missouri are torn. Missouri is forming militias. So that's something I think we're going to want to counter. I can't move troops around, but I can raise troops. I don't think I can raise Illinois or Missouri troops, but I think I can raise Illinois troops. And so I may want to do that to try and get some troops to Missouri as soon as we can. So secession's gaining support in Kentucky. Kentucky's vowing to remain neutral. The governor is a Southern sympathizer, but the legislature there is unionist. So that's just something to let us know that Kentucky is claiming it's neutral. Obviously, that's not very realistic in the sense of a war, but it means probably whoever moves into Kentucky first will lose the state to the other side. Meanwhile, the situation at Fort Sumter is deteriorating. Siege artillery is being moved in. Fort Pickens is holding on as well. This is just sort of following the historical path. It is now March 1st of 1861. Texas has now officially joined the Confederacy. President Buchanan, yours truly, I guess, at the moment is just twiddling his thumbs and doing nothing, because there's nothing really to be done at the moment. Davis is calling for militia, 12-month contracts, provisional armies being formed in the South. So they're doing all these things. Meanwhile, yours truly, President Buchanan, doing nothing. All right, so Lincoln is inaugurated as the 16th president of the United States, and he is setting up a new cabinet to manage the crisis. So Lincoln being inaugurated does open some new policies. The Militia Act is opened up, which allows us to raise militia, I believe, for 3 months. The president has the authority to call in militia to form provisional army, but only if the nation's under attack. The act will allow the recruitment of volunteer units under a 3-month contract. It'll be considered an act of war by the Confederacy and will increase their morale. If not activated before Fort Sumter is attacked, this act will be activated without a delay automatically, and in that case, the boost in Confederate morale will be lower than if it was activated before attack. So basically, we can get the jump on them and start raising 3-month troops now, but that'll start the war right away, rather than if we wait, then we can force the Confederacy to shoot first. They get less of a morale bonus, and we get this for free without spending 12 days to do it anyway. Fort Sumter doesn't get shot on if the historical trend follows for a little while still, but I think we'll leave that alone at the moment. I think that's the only other policy that opened up with Lincoln being inaugurated. And by the way, you can see these policies tied to Chapter 1 of House Divided. That's that first video thing that we saw. Chapter 2, Demons of War. This is after, I believe, Fort Sumter gets fired up. You can also auto-manage these policies, but I don't want to do that. Okay, so we know Missouri is starting to slide to the Confederacy, so what should we do about it? We can't really move troops into these border states at the moment, according to the way the game works. But what I could do is I could go to the military tab, and I could go ahead and I could form a new army, I think. So recruit a new army. Unless there's a fort. I don't think there's a fort I can assign them to. Not Missouri. Yeah. There's forts, but they're way to the south. So we'll go back to that military tab. We're going to go ahead and form a new army, I guess. It'll be an Illinois army. As you can see here, as we go into the form army option, we do have a breakout of what our troops are. So you can see currently the number of men fielded for each state, currently the support in each state, the number of casualties the state has received taken in the course of the war, deserters, the total number of volunteers available to raise new units, and then how many troops have been drafted. So at the moment, we can raise up to 9,352 troops in Illinois. That's the closest state to Missouri. It doesn't look like we have any troops that we can raise in Missouri at the moment. Illinois has an 85 support level, so pretty good, although not as good as places like Connecticut or Massachusetts, but those places are so far away, I don't really see any point in raising troops there. So, we can go ahead and raise troops in Illinois. I guess the name of the army will be the Army of the Mississippi. It'll be commanded by Brigadier General James Shields. Or sorry, Major General James Shields. He doesn't even have a portrait, so this is just a randomly generated character. We can go ahead and assign a new commander if we want to it. So I don't know who we would assign. I don't even know who's from Illinois. Like, who would be a realistic commander to choose? Oh, it does tell you the home state of each commander. So Buell is Ohio, Burton is New York, Pennsylvania. It'd be great if I could filter by their states. Can I do that? Oh, I can. That's cool. So we can see there's all these different commanders from Illinois. James Morgan is a captain. We've got a couple of colonels, Edward Baker and Daniel Cameron. I don't know who any of these guys are. Obviously, we've got Ulysses S. Grant, but I'm not going to make him an army commander already, probably. So I guess we just go with one of the higher ranking individuals. Baker is a mediocre administrator, cunning and foreseeable, pre-war experience. Daniel Cameron is a mediocre administrator, cunning and foreseeable. Leadership liked, leadership inspiring, initiative active, initiative passive. Fame is unknown, little known. He is 50 and he is 32. So we'll give it to Baker, even though he doesn't even have a military uniform on. Born in London, Baker moved to the United States, becoming a politician and lawyer. He served in the U.S. House of Representatives from Illinois, gaining experience in the Mexican-American War. He served at the Battle of Cerro Gordo, leading a brigade to capture enemy guns. Okay. Seems like a reasonable choice. So we'll assign him to command of the army, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to assign a new unit to that army. It's going, so this army can pull troops from the Indian Territories, Mississippi, Florida, Illinois, but the only place we have enough for a brigade is Illinois. So we'll go ahead and do an Illinois brigade. You can see when you choose a brigade, you actually have the option to change their uniform style. You can also change the color of their uniform down here, of both their jacket and their pants. You can typically change whether they're draftees or recruits, but at the moment, obviously, they're volunteers or draftees, but at the moment, they're going to be volunteers because it's all we have. It is a militia brigade. We can do an infantry brigade. What am I doing here? Change initial brigade size. So we can choose different brigade sizes. So 750 men, 375, or 563. I don't know what this means up here. Supply alert. I don't know if I have enough money for this, but in any event, we're going to go ahead and do an infantry brigade. You can do a cavalry brigade, artillery brigade, or artillery battalion, but we're going to do a infantry brigade. They are state militia troops with a 12-month contract. So we'll raise them in Illinois. And the commander of that unit, I don't want it to be Mansfield. I want it to be another Illinoisan. So since it's a lower level unit, we'll go ahead and choose a captain. And William P. Carlin, inspiring, little known, good administrator. We could go with Grant, but I don't know what's going to happen to this unit, so we'll go with William Carlin. And then you can also choose the weapons that the unit has. So right now these guys have mixed muskets, which are like cheap but suck. So we could upgrade the weapons to Springfields. Or we could, with Springfield musket, Springfield rifled musket, there's 25, 31, and 1, the 1817 rifle as well. We'll just keep mixed muskets right now because it's just a militia unit that's being raised. Really like these filters on the right side here for like howitzers, breech loading rifles, siege artillery. That's kind of cool. All right, so we're going to raise these guys. It's going to take 14 days. So those guys are going to begin assembling. Looks like they're going to raise at Quincy, Illinois, which is nice, rather than Chicago, because it's just up the river from St. Louis, which is where we'll probably send them to try and keep the state. We're only going to raise one. I don't have enough money really to raise a ton of troops, and I don't want to risk pissing off the South too much. One other thing I am also going to do, though, is I'm going to begin raising a navy. So you can see here we have this home squadron here. The ships in port do slowly get ready and get ready to get assigned to different commands. But at the moment, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and form a new squadron. So we're going to create a new fleet. We're going to create it at Cairo, Illinois on the Mississippi River. It is a level 1 port, but I don't think we have a level 2 port on the Mississippi River. We've got a bunch of zeros at like Quincy, so we can't build stuff there. We've got stuff in Maryland, but that's not relevant to this. Massachusetts, Wisconsin, but none of this is on the Mississippi. So we're gonna go and we're gonna found a new fleet at Cairo, Illinois. We're gonna go ahead and have the commander be someone else. I want it to be. Can we make it Flag Officer Foote? Because historically he commanded the River Flotilla initially. We can. We have Andrew H. Foote. He is a insignificant fame 54-year-old who is venturous, inspiring, and a skilled administrator. He's cunning and unpredictable. So he had Mexican-American War experience, and he's a lieutenant commander. That's not a Navy rank, is it? Yeah, it is. Of course it is. I'm dumb. All right, so he's going to command the Cairo Squadron. I think. Did I just have him change? Oh, what did I just do? Did I move all the ships back into port? I did. I didn't mean to. I thought we were creating a new fleet. What have I done? What the hell? Let's go to -50 and then pause. The fleet's still here. The home squadron's still here, so I don't know what I did. Oh, I'm still filtering by foot. Is that why? So I didn't want him to be the home squadron commander. I wanted to create a new fleet, Cairo, Illinois, build that. And then we'll worry about assigning ships to it in a minute, I think. Go back to the home squadron, replace him with whoever's the most senior commander. It's Commodore Garrett Pendergrast. I don't think the U.S. had any admirals at the time. And then the River Squadron will be commanded by Flag Officer Foote, who's now apparently a Commodore because I promoted him to command that one fleet. So now he's a Commodore. Well, now it says he's commander. That's confusing. All right. So, let's close this for a second. Where is that squadron? Oh, it doesn't exist yet? I guess you have to build a ship, assign a ship to a squadron, or the squadron goes away. So we'll go ahead and create a new squadron at Cairo. We've got to assign a ship to it. So we're actually going to construct a new ship because I don't think we have any ships on the river yet. So I'm going to go ahead and construct a ship at Cairo, Illinois. We are limited in what we can construct there because the port is only a level 1 port size. So you can see we can't construct these red ships here, sloops of war, steam sloops, frigates, steam frigate. They're too big and we don't have the facilities. What we can construct is some smaller, 2nd, 3rd, 4th rate steamers. or we can construct some like timber-clad gunboats or other things like that. I'm going to focus on the timber-clad gunboats. I think those are the best option. We could go with a paddle steamer. The timber-clad gunboats come with 6 guns. Looks like the second-rate steamer comes with 9. But these guys are a large ship, so I'm not even sure how well we can build those, although they can move on the sea and rivers. But we're going to go ahead and build a Gunboat Flotilla. We're going to go ahead and name this one the Cairo, I guess. I'm going to change the name of this to the River Squadron. And then we're going to go ahead and build a timber-clad gunboat. So we're building one of these. We're also going to replace the commander with a foot. Still shows that he's a Commodore. I guess CMDR to me is commander, but it does show his rank as Commodore, so he'll be the commander there. And then we're going to build a couple of gunboats. So we'll build the Cairo. We'll go ahead and build another timber-clad. We'll name it, I guess, the... I don't know. What do I want the darn ship to be named? I guess we'll name one after me. Why not? Hopefully it doesn't get sunk. By the way, you can see down here the building cost is $137,000, so we're going to be burning through our cash. It's a medium-sized ship. It's available to be used on rivers only. It's a steam ship. Has 6 guns, armors timber, speed 7 knots. And actually, when you look at these, you can see it takes 1,789 wood, 223 iron, 61 machine parts, 12 naval artillery, 12 coal, 320 provisions, and 729 ammunition. Requires a port level of 1, which Cairo is, and all of this stuff gets pulled from that economy screen that we were looking at before with like goods and products. So this can stimulate demand, cause new factories, new foundries to rise up, but also can cause prices to spike, which then makes future ships more expensive. So that's kind of how the supply and demand side of things works in the game. We're going to go ahead and make another timberclad, and I don't have a problem naming this one Lexington, so we'll do that. And I think we'll build 4 of the things. I think that'll be a good number of gunboats to make sure the Mississippi River is closed to the Confederacy north of Cairo. That way we can ensure that they don't, have any tomfoolery in our rear there. I don't know if the gunboat would be a better option. She has 5 guns. She's medium size. They're both medium, 5 versus 4. She makes 10 knots though, but she's a sail ship, isn't she? No sail and steam. Huh. She's more expensive. All right. So we'll go ahead and build a 4th one here. And so you can see all of these ships, none of these are currently ready. They're all disabled. They're all, not available. So they're being They're being built. And it looks like it's going to take these guys 77 days each to be constructed. So it's going to take 2.5 months for these guys to get ready. But that's why I wanted to start this sooner rather than later, because ships take a while to build and we know the war is coming. So let's get this squadron up and running sooner rather than later. Let's also change. Why does it still say Gregory's squadron? There we go. Okay, so this will help us block the Mississippi to any marauding Confederates, I think. And then we're building that new army at Quincy. And I think that's all we can do right now. So we'll go ahead and speed things back up, get time running. By the way, our credit rating went up to AAA, so that must have just been like oh, the game just started. Virginia's loyalty is questioned, rumors of secession in Virginia. You also get some dispatches up here. So we issued $10 million in bonds here at 9% interest. Keeps track of that. Total outstanding debt is $74 million for the country right now. So obviously there's a limit to how much debt you can take. And then a monthly economic report, which gives you information about how much debt you have, how much more you took, what your credit rating is. The economic situation right now is it's currently expanding, the number of new foundries or factories that are founded, export volume. The economic stuff, even though you don't directly do a lot with it, there's a lot of stuff behind the hood there, which is pretty cool. You can see these ships say they're disabled, and that's because they're under construction. So you can see our cash flow and trends and blah, blah, blah. Some of those other units, by the way, the readiness of some of these ships is going up. Under construction, though, right? Yeah, 74 more days to 3% built. So some of these garrisons are more ready now than they were before. You can see the readiness situation for the guys at Fort Sumter is excellent. I can't really dispatch any more troops there because I don't have any to dispatch, and it doesn't let you move units prior to the firing on Fort Sumter. I tried, so there's that. Also, I think you can build railroads now. So like you can construct railroads. We already have quite a few, but you can do that. So obviously that would also impact the economy if you start building railroads and things like that. But the Union already has a good amount of railroads, so I think that might be more relevant like once we start taking over parts of the South, or maybe if railroads get destroyed in cavalry raids or things like that, which you can do, by the way. All right, so military policy 1 is selected and complete. So those 12 days is up. We're actually to March 25th. By the way, one thing, you can scroll in and out. You can see you get into like more of a, I don't know if this is a 3D map, but more of a 3D type map. This is not the map you fight on when you fight battles, but you can see armies marching and things like that on the screen. It gives you a little bit more topography and information around that. All right, so if we go to the policies here, we can see that military 1 has been selected and is active. We have a couple of other options now, so that unlocks letters of marque, which allows us to start hiring privateers. For the Union, I don't think we should need privateers. It also allows us to unlock regulars. That'll take 24 days. So instead of distributing you as regulars among the provisional Army volunteer units, to set an example, independent units will be formed from the regular Army. 6 small regular units with good training and experience are added to your armies. Military experience goes down by 5 for the rest of your units. But it does give you a cadre of veteran troops that instantly get raised. So we could do that. That'll take 24 days. So it'll be like mid-April before that comes online. Otherwise, we could focus on breadbasket, or we could focus on government funding. I think I'm going to go with government funding because I need more money if I'm going to be building a bunch of ships and troops and things like that soon. It's going to take 30 days for that. The regulars take 24, but we'll go ahead and do government funding. Now you can do more than one, by the way, just as a reminder, right? So this is 30 days. If I wanted to do regulars, also I could do that. So but then it would like double the government funding length of time to do 2 at a time. So I'm not going to do 2 at a time just because I'd rather get the funding sooner so I can start printing cash. Now, one thing I will say about this game is there's a lot more to do once the war gets going. We're in a quiet phase of the war at the moment. The war hasn't actually begun. Fort Sumter hasn't been fought on. And we can't move armies around. We're still very much in sort of the like pick some of your initial movements. This real-time, pausable, accelerating like of the game and things like that works reasonably well when the armies are moving. In this kind of a period where things are largely stagnant and not much is happening, it's not, I don't think it's, you know, honestly, this would almost be better as like some games where they give you like a slideshow of like pick your decisions and then start the game rather than like play this out the same way you play the rest of the game. I don't know. It's just a thought. Like if it gave us a slide of like 12 options, pick the policies you want to choose you'll have time to complete before the war starts. You know, how do you want to spend your limited amount of money? That kind of stuff. I think that would be potentially interesting to do. Looks like we're still having to issue bonds. I will say I'm confused about the Treasury because it seems like it tells me we have a surplus all the time, and yet our cash is going down. So that doesn't make sense to me. By the way, Fort Sumter's under siege. Supply situation is getting worse. But you can see like we're issuing more bonds, which, okay, that's probably fine, but I just don't understand how it says we have a surplus then if our cash flow is negative. And then we've got a monthly report for April now that we had a new month. You can see 1 new foundry was built, 1 factory was built, and 1 mill was built in our country in the last month. So the economy is expanding. Companies aren't going out of business, and new companies are being founded. Beauregard is issuing his ultimatum to Fort Sumter down here, so the Confederates are going to fire on Sumter here very soon. Fort Sumter surrenders, 3,000 Confederate rounds fired, no casualties from the bombardment. And so at this point, we're going to get a new trigger here in a second. Lincoln's calling for volunteers. The South is going to resist. I don't know if Virginia and North Carolina are seceding yet, but here we go. So the beginning of this game is very different from how it'll be once the armies start marching, but you can see like this is a new sort of video and sort of narrative spot in the game at this point. And it's going to give us some information about sort of the rush to war. We're moving to chapter 2 in the war, the demons of war. I think there's a lot of policies for chapter 1 that you can never ever get to. I guess you could theoretically start up to 8 of them, but it's going to give us an overview of like how we got to Sumter and everything up to this point. So, you know, I'm not going to sit through this again. It's going to be like another 5-7 minutes or so. These are pretty reasonably well done. Like they could stand on their own as, you know, little historical documentary vignettes. Although, I think the narrator could still do a better job. That being said, let's go ahead and skip ahead so you can see further southern states secede, volunteers flood city halls, Confederate armies are on the move. Europe is not taking sides. Let's pause. So it is April 15th, and when we move to chapter 2, the game just kind of automatically spawns different units. So you can see there are Confederate units here in Virginia that weren't there before. You can see that there's the Army of the Potomac. Looks like they only have 4,000 troops there, and then the Army of the Shenandoah has about 8,000 troops. It looks like about 2,000 of those are not yet there. They're disabled. Meanwhile, we raised some troops in the Department of Pennsylvania, 5,800 troops under Major General Robert Patterson, and then we have about 10,000 troops under Major General Irvin McDowell, so the historical Army of the Potomac. It's still small, so obviously it's only April. This army will grow in time to be larger and fight the Battle of Bull Run, but you can see a whole bunch of new units spawned on the map that weren't here before. You've got the Gulf Blockading Squadron that's based out of the Florida Keys, the Atlantic Blockading Squadron, Flying Flotilla, and the Home Squadron. If we go and we take a look here, trying to see if these are like ships that weren't in harbor before, but it looks like the harbor ships are all still there. So I don't know if these are just new units that spawned. Certainly they did in the case of the Army. You can see in terms of total troops fielded, 22,000 Union troops versus 18,000 Confederates so far. And the Union Navy tonnage went from like 50,000 to 74,000 tons, so a rapid expansion. That being said, the stuff we are building is still there. So you can see that the River Squadron that we started building, these guys are making progress on their construction here. 12% complete for these guys now at this point, I think. Yeah. And then our Army of the Mississippi has 1,000 men that have been raised under it. And if we go to the OOB for that, you can see, oh, that's not it. Carlin's brigade is at 1,066 men. And I think they're ready to march. So what we could do with them is we could go ahead and send them down to St. Louis now. Since the war has been declared, Sumter's been fired on, we can go ahead and send them down via sea to St. Louis, issue those orders. They'll travel by boat down to St. Louis, and they're going to join the Department of the West under Major General William Harney, who already formed some troops in St. Louis, 1,700 troops. The reason it is a good thing to raise these guys here is we're going to get 2,700 troops in St. Louis now. We know there's a Confederate army at Franklin that's opposing us, and so it'll help us slow the Confederates down. The Missouri State Guard is about 2,000 troops, so we'll outnumber them when our guys get there, and we'll figure out how we want to form this all up. But you can see here that Franklin is under Confederate control under the Missouri State Guard. You can see here that the Rolla Depot is under Confederate control, and then our river squadron is being built down here in Cairo. So you can see, you know, there's some foundry. Oh, there's a foundry being constructed. Repaired 17%, ready in 16 days. So there's a foundry being constructed here in northern Tennessee. And then you can see, you know, different landmarks, different buildings and economic pieces in here. What did that say? April 14th, the Army of the Tennessee, 1,600 men. But they're behind Kentucky, so I don't think they're going to move through Kentucky because Kentucky's technically still neutral. So yeah, at this point, the war has begun. This is the very early stages of this game. We're just getting started. I know we've been talking for almost 50 minutes at this point, but this is the early game. This is what it looks like for Grand Tactician, the Civil War. You can see different icons here that represent heat maps for trade, heat maps for support. Ooh, that's kind of a cool one. supply maps, slavery in terms of, I'm guessing this indicates where the different slaves are located, and then workforce for like your foundries, factories, and economy and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this video. This very first look at the beginning of the war. I think things will get very interesting soon. I think the question that we need to pose to ourselves is, do we want to try and get an early, leg up over the Confederacy, push across the Potomac, take Alexandria, and try and drive the Confederate Army of the Potomac back before they can, recruit more troops, even though we only have about 10,000 soldiers here? Or do we want to wait and build our own strength up? I'm of the opinion that we should at least push out and take Alexandria before we start moving further, before we build up too much. One other thing worth keeping in mind is that your troops only have a certain amount of time that they're in your army. So we've got 9,000 troops here, but all these troops, you can see, by the way, they're formed into 3 different divisions. But if we take a look at these troops, these guys are all 3-month recruits, and somehow they're 2 months into their recruitment period, which doesn't make any sense to me. So these guys are going to be mustered out pretty quick, which basically means we need to raise a bunch of new troops, but we need to do it quickly. But on the flip side, if we're about to lose all these militia troops, like, I don't know, we should probably use them now. So I think we're going to push across the river. We're going to try and take Alexandria. Maybe we'll even drive as far as Manassas down here, Manassas Junction, and then cut off the army in the Shenandoah from their direct eastern route. Have our new troops form up and join at that point. I don't know. We'll see. I'm really curious to see how much of a fight the AI gives. I hope it's better than it was last time I played this, but hope you guys enjoyed this very first video in this new series looking at Grand Tactician, the Civil War. There will be more coming. Let me know your thoughts. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying once again, thank you very much for watching, and until next time, I'm out.